The party should have been perfect. It was my 18th. Balloons drooped against the ceiling, frosting slick where candles had started to pool, and laughter ricocheted around the living room. My friends crowded the sofa, trading jokes. My mother sat near the table, her fingers twisting a napkin, smiling the way she always did when she tried to make everything feel safe. For a stupid, hopeful second, I let myself believe maybe Garrett would do something small, something kind, that would make the night feel real. Instead, he stood up. The room hushed like someone had flipped a switch. Garrett's voice cut through the quiet in a way that made the air taste wrong. "You're not my son," he said, slow and deliberate. "Get your things and leave." He didn't raise his voice. There was no need. The sentence landed and held the room in a hard silence. At first I thought it was a joke, the kind adults sometimes made in terrible taste, and then laughed off. But then he crossed the room, snatched a plastic grocery bag from near the door, and dumped it at my feet. The bag thudded and sagged with everything I owned. It was the weight of it that finally made my chest seize. Eleanor, my mother, watched with her hands up at her mouth. Her eyes were bright and wet, but she didn't argue. She didn't move to stop him. Her stillness felt louder than his words. My friends exchanged looks, uncomfortable and useless. I felt my face heat, a hot shame that climbed up my neck and settled behind my eyes. I picked the bag up because there was nothing else to do. Outside, rain began like a slow apology, and then turned to a steady, sharp downpour. The cold sliced through my shirt almost immediately. I walked without direction, each step carrying the ache of not belonging, and the strange, brittle knowledge that everything I counted on had shifted. Tears mixed with rain until I couldn't tell which was which. Headlights cut a rectangle through the dark, and a black car slowed beside me. The window rolled down and the driver leaned out, his features softened by shadow. "Oliver?" he asked. The name felt unfamiliar coming from someone else's mouth. "Yeah," I said, clutching the bag like it might keep me upright. He nodded, then spoke as if he'd been given orders he'd followed a long time. "Samuel asked me to find you." Those 3 words landed like an impossible gift. Samuel, a man whose face I had seen only in an old photograph tucked in the back of a drawer, was a name whispered in moments when people tried to explain the past without making it painful. My heart thudded against my ribs like it wanted to climb out of my throat. The slow, steady rumble of the car seemed to wrap around me. For the first time that night, I let myself imagine things that were new and dangerous. A place where my presence didn't have to be explained or tolerated, where someone might say my name and mean it. I thought back to childhood afternoons when other boys were taught to swing a bat or fix a bike, and how I had spent those hours trying to make myself small enough to be invisible to the man at my house. Garrett built walls with his voice, critiques like bricks, and my mother tried to patch the cracks with soft words and gentle routines. She loved me, I knew that, but love was a thing that sometimes didn't move mountains. Sometimes it froze in the place where it needed to push the world aside. So I climbed into the car, because my legs had stopped trusting me to stand. The driver gave me a look that was neither pitying nor prying, just straightforward, like someone doing what they'd been asked to do. As we drove away, the house shrank in the rear view, lights blinking like distant stars. Rain drummed against the roof, and for the first time since Garrett's words, all the noise in my head quieted. Maybe this was the start of something else. Maybe it was only a detour. I didn't know. What I did know was that I no longer wanted to stand in a room where silence got louder than protection. The road ahead felt uncertain and strange, but it felt, if nothing else, like it might belong to me. I always knew my mother loved me, but she lived inside a fragile balance. Eleanor worked long hours at a small clinic, coming home worn down, her scrubs carrying the faint scent of antiseptic. She wanted nothing more than quiet evenings and a house without conflict. That meant absorbing Garrett's tempers and teaching me to do the same. When his voice rose, she would squeeze my hand gently and whisper, "Don't argue. Let it pass." I learned that silence was safer than speaking. The years slipped by, and the house never once felt like mine. Garrett dictated everything. He decided what went on the table at dinner. He approved or denied who could visit. If I left so much as a glass in the sink, he made sure to remind me I wasn't his responsibility. If I needed help with schoolwork, he told me to figure it out myself. Every word chipped away at me, though I kept waiting for the day he might soften, the day he'd look at me without resentment. Turning 18 was supposed to change everything. In my head, it meant finally stepping into adulthood, finally earning the respect I'd been denied. I imagined Garrett might acknowledge me, even briefly, as something more than a shadow of the man he despised. My father was always an unanswered question. Samuel was a name I never heard spoken, just hints and fragments. Too young, not ready, gone before I could remember. Whenever I asked, Eleanor's voice would fade, her eyes fixed on some place I couldn't see. The mystery became a quiet ache I carried everywhere. That morning, I woke with cautious hope. My closest friends were coming, people who never judged me for the pieces of family I lacked. My Uncle Darius had promised to stop by too, Eleanor's older brother, the one man who had ever made me feel seen. The house smelled of sugar and vanilla. Balloons sagged in the corner from the night before. Eleanor set the cake on the table, her smile wide, her eyes shining as though she believed she could hold the day together by sheer will. Garrett sat in his usual place at the head of the table, arms folded, face closed off. I noticed it, but I told myself not to care. Maybe he was tired. Maybe, just maybe, tonight he would surprise me. Hope has a way of blinding you to truths you already know. My friends gathered around, clapping and laughing as the candles flickered. I blew them out and let myself wish for something simple. Acceptance, belonging. A place where I wasn't just tolerated. Eleanor pressed a gift into my hands, whispering, "Happy birthday, sweetheart." Her voice was soft, but before I could even tear at the paper, Garrett pushed back his chair. The scrape of it against the floor swallowed every other sound. He rose slowly, his movements deliberate, as though he had rehearsed this moment. His eyes fixed on me, hard and steady. 18 years, he said, his tone flat and cold. 18 years of pretending. The room went still. My friends glanced at each other, caught between nervous laughter and dread. Eleanor's hands trembled where they rested against the table. My chest tightened as I realized Garrett wasn't finished. Something was about to shatter, and no amount of wishing could stop it. That moment was the last calm breath before everything shattered. The scrape of Garrett's chair against the floor cut through the laughter like a blade, leaving only silence behind. He rose slowly, arms folded tight, his gaze fixed on me as if I were nothing more than an unwelcome guest in his house. My chest pounded. The cake in front of me, still glowing with flickering candles, suddenly felt like a cruel decoration for a party that was never meant to be mine. "Enough pretending," Garrett said, his voice low but carrying through the room like a crack of thunder. "You're not my son. You never were, and now that you're 18, you're finished here. You're out." The words hit so hard I couldn't breathe. For an instant, I thought maybe I had misheard. My friends shifted in their seats, uneasy, their laughter gone. One of them let out a nervous chuckle before realizing no one else was smiling. My eyes shot to Eleanor, silently begging her to speak, to stop this before it went any further. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with panic, but her lips stayed closed. She lifted a trembling hand as if to reach for me, then let it drop back to her lap. "Garrett, please," she whispered. "Not like this, not in front of everyone." "This is exactly the time," he said sharply, not looking away from me. "He's 18. He's no responsibility of mine anymore." Heat burned in my chest. My throat tightened until my words cracked as they came out. "You can't just throw me out." "I can and I will," he snapped. I've kept a roof over your head, food in your mouth. But you're nothing to me. You never were. You're not my blood, Oliver. You never will be." The words hung in the air, sharp and final. My best friend, Malik, half rose from his chair, ready to step in. I caught his eye and shook my head. I couldn't let him get dragged into this. Garrett bent down and picked up a plastic grocery bag. The handles were stretched thin, the bottom sagging with weight. He tossed it at my feet with a dull thud. I didn't need to look inside. It was my clothes, my life stuffed into a single bag. "There," he said flatly. "That's all you need. Take it and leave." The only sound was the steady tap of rain against the windows. Every pair of eyes in the room burned into me, heavy with pity. My hands trembled as I stared at Eleanor. "Mom, please," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Tell him I don't have to go." Tears filled her eyes, but she stayed frozen. Garrett's hand pressed down on the back of her chair, a warning that kept her silent. She whispered my name, soft and broken, but it carried no strength. It sounded more like regret than defiance. I bent down, picked up the bag, and clutched it to my side. My stomach twisted. The room spun. Malik muttered, "This is insane." But no one else dared to speak. I stood there for a final second, staring at Garrett. His expression was unyielding, daring me to argue. 1,000 words burned on my tongue, but none of them would matter. Nothing I said could make him see me as a son, so I turned and walked to the door. Eleanor let out a quiet sob, but she didn't move to stop me. The hinges creaked as I pulled it open, and the storm outside swallowed the silence. Rain pounded against me, soaking me instantly, each drop heavy and cold. The house behind me stayed still and unmovable, but I didn't look back. The storm swallowed me whole as I walked, water splashing around my ankles with every step. My sneakers squelched, soaked through, and the plastic bag dug into my palm as if it wanted to leave a mark. I clutched it tighter because it was all I had left. My tears blended with the rain until I couldn't tell which stung worse. The voices from inside the house faded into memory, replaced by the rhythm of rain and the pounding in my chest. It was supposed to be my birthday, the beginning of something new. Instead, I was a stranger in my own life, carrying scraps of clothes down an empty street. The boy who still believed in hope a few minutes ago was gone, replaced by someone who had nowhere to belong. Questions churned in my head, sharp and unrelenting. Where would I sleep? Would Elena come after me? Or would she stay behind Garrett, trapped in silence like always? The betrayal bit deeper than the cold. I thought about Uncle Darius, wishing he had been there, wishing someone had stepped between me and Garrett. Darius was the only man who ever made me feel like I mattered, but he wasn't there, and Garrett had chosen this moment precisely because of that. I kept walking, though my legs trembled and my chest ached. Streetlights bled into the storm, their glow smearing across the wet pavement like melted stars. Every house I passed flickered with warmth, dinners being shared, laughter echoing, the kind of life I had longed for but never touched. Garrett's words echoed louder than the storm. "You're not my real son. You're out of this house." He had stripped me of belonging and cast me out without hesitation. I wanted to scream, to curse, to demand answers from Eleanor. But the storm devoured my voice, so I walked, each step dragging me farther away from who I had been. Then came the sound, low, steady, and out of place against the storm. An engine behind me. I ignored it at first, thinking it would pass. But the hum grew closer until headlights spread across the rain and swallowed my shadow. The car slowed, gliding beside me, its black frame gleaming even under the downpour. I froze. My grip on the bag tightened, the handles cutting deeper into my skin. The tinted window lowered with a quiet hum. A man leaned slightly out, his face obscured by shadows. But his voice carried over the rain, calm even, as though he had been expecting me. "Oliver?" he asked. My heart stuttered. I nodded, uncertain, and the storm seemed to pause for his next words. "Oliver?" The sound of my name cut through the storm, clear and certain. I froze, my throat tight. I had no idea who the man was, but the way he said it felt deliberate, as if he had been practicing it for this very moment. "Yeah," I answered, my voice low, nearly drowned out by the rain. The man gave a single nod, like he had just confirmed something he already knew. "Your real father sent me." The word struck harder than the thunder overhead. My chest tightened, my breath catching. My real father. The man I had spent years imagining but never truly knowing. The man Eleanor spoke of only in fragments, her voice fading whenever the questions became too sharp. A ghost I had carried with me all my life. I stepped back instinctively, gripping the bag tighter. "What are you talking about? Who are you?" His voice didn't rise. It stayed steady, calm, almost grounding. "My name's Cole. Samuel asked me to find you. He wanted me to make sure you're safe." "Safe?" The storm hammered against the car roof like a drum, but his words rang louder in my head. My thoughts spun. "Safe from what?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he gestured toward the back seat. "Get in. You don't have to stand out here in the rain. I'll explain everything once you're inside." Every instinct in me screamed not to trust him, not to climb into a stranger's car in the middle of a storm. But the words your father sent me clung to me like a lifeline. Samuel. The name I had whispered to myself on nights Garrett reminded me I didn't belong. The name I had dreamed might mean something more than absence. "If you're telling the truth," I said sharply, "then tell me his name. Say it." Cole didn't hesitate. "Samuel Hayes. He's been waiting a long time to see you." The name hit me like a jolt. Eleanor had whispered it once years ago when she thought I was asleep. Samuel. She had spoken it with such tenderness, then buried it under silence when I asked about it later. Hearing it now in the storm made my knees feel weak. "Why now?" My voice cracked. "If he wanted me, where has he been all this time?" Cole's jaw tightened slightly, but his tone never wavered. "It wasn't his choice. Garrett made sure he was kept out of your life. But Samuel never stopped looking for you. He couldn't reach you before. Now you're 18. You're free, and he wanted me to find you the moment that happened." The sound of Garrett's name lit a fresh anger inside me. I saw his face again, cold, certain, discarding me like I was nothing. Cole leaned forward, his eyes steady, unwavering. "Your father never gave up on you, Oliver. He's been waiting for this day." Rain poured harder, streaming down my face, mixing with the tears I tried to hide. Part of me screamed that this was too much, too sudden, too dangerous to believe. But another part, the part that had carried hope in silence all these years, felt something fragile flare inside me. I turned back once, staring through the storm at the faint glow of the house I had left. Behind those walls sat a man who had thrown me away without hesitation, and a mother who had stayed silent. That place was no longer mine. Then I looked back at Cole, at the open car door, at the warmth waiting inside. My father sent him. My choice was brutal but clear. Stay in the storm with nothing but a bag of clothes and questions that haunted me, or take the first step toward the truth I had always wanted. I drew in a shaky breath, pulled the handle, and slid into the car. The warmth enveloped me instantly, soft leather pressing against me as if the world itself had shifted. The door clicked shut, sealing out the storm until all that remained was the steady hum of the engine and the pounding of my heart. Cole glanced at me once, his gaze steady in the mirror, then shifted the car into gear. "Hold on, Oliver," he said firmly. "You're about to hear everything they never wanted you to know." As the car pulled away from the curb, I knew there was no going back. The boy who had stepped into the rain with nothing but a bag was gone. For the first time, I wasn't just wandering in search of belonging. I was heading toward the truth of who I was. The windshield wipers beat back the rain, the rhythm filling the silence. I sat stiffly in the back seat, clutching my plastic bag of clothes as if it could shield me. Questions swirled in my head, but my throat tightened around them. Cole's eyes flicked up in the rearview mirror. His tone was calm, steady. I know this feels like too much, but you deserve the truth. I forced myself to speak, suspicion sharpening my voice. If my father really wanted me, why wasn't he here? Why didn't he fight for me? Cole's hands tightened on the wheel. He did fight. You were too young to remember, but Garrett made sure Samuel was forced out. He twisted things, manipulated Eleanor, and blocked every path Samuel had to reach you. Your father wasn't allowed near you. Garrett wanted control, and he kept it. The anger in me flared so hot it made my chest ache. So all this time I thought my dad abandoned me. I thought I wasn't good enough. And you're saying Garrett stole him from me? Yes, Cole said firmly. Your father never abandoned you. He never stopped searching. The moment you were legally free from Garrett's grip, he sent me. I shook my head slowly, trying to take it in. The storm inside me louder than the one outside. Then where is he now? Where's Samuel? Cole reached into the passenger seat and picked up a small envelope. He handed it back to me without a word. My fingers trembled as I tore it open. Inside was a folded letter and a worn photograph. I pulled the picture out first. My breath caught. A younger man with dark hair was holding a newborn wrapped in a blanket, his smile wide, his eyes glowing with pride. The baby was me, my throat closed. I pressed the photo against my chest, vision blurring. With shaking hands, I opened the letter. The handwriting was strong, certain, Oliver, my son. For 18 years I have waited for this day. I wanted to be there for every moment, every milestone, every step. But I was forced away from you. Not a single day passed when I didn't fight to find you. You were never abandoned. You were never forgotten. You are my son and I love you. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. The letter slipped into my lap, my chest heaving. He really wanted me, I whispered. Cole's voice softened. He did, and he still does. He asked me to bring you to him tonight. My heart hammered, fear and hope colliding inside me. Part of me wanted to believe with everything I had. Another part, the part molded by Garrett's cruelty and Eleanor's silence, warned me to stay guarded. Why tonight? I asked, my voice tight. Why not wait? Cole's eyes met mine in the mirror, steady and unflinching. Because Garrett made his move tonight. Samuel knew it was coming. He knew the moment Garrett pushed you out, you'd need him. He's been waiting for this day. The car rolled past the edge of town, the streetlights fading behind us. The storm thinned, the rain easing to a drizzle, leaving only the dark road stretching ahead. My chest tightened with every mile until the car slowed and turned onto a long, tree-lined drive. At the end, a house glowed with warm light against the dark. I felt my pulse thud in my ears as we pulled up. Cole looked back once, then nodded. He's inside, he said. I opened the door and stepped out, my legs unsteady. The air felt cleaner here, as if the storm had washed something away. I clutched the photograph in my hand and moved toward the front steps. The door opened before I reached it. A man stood there, older now, a few streaks of gray at his temples. But the face matched the picture I'd been holding. The same eyes, the same jawline. When he looked at me, something in his expression unclenched. Recognition, relief, and a tenderness that made my throat burn. Oliver, he said, voice trembling. I could hear the years in it. My body wanted to move before my mind could catch up. I stumbled forward, dropped the bag, and let myself be pulled into his arms. He held me like someone making up for every lost day, solid and certain, and something inside me broke open. I sobbed against his shoulder and felt the weight of a dozen lonely years slide off. You were never unwanted, he murmured into my hair. They took you from me. He pressed me tighter until I could breathe. For the first time in my life, I felt anchored. The false world Garrett had built around me. The cold words, the small exclusions, the way Eleanor had been frozen into silence. All of it felt suddenly fragile, as if a single touch could dissolve it. We went inside. The house smelled of wood smoke and baking bread, ordinary comforts that felt extravagant after the night I'd had. I sank into a chair at the kitchen table, still holding the photo and the letter like relics. Samuel sat opposite me, hands folded, his gaze never leaving my face as if he were memorizing it. "I tried to reach you," he said, voice raw. "I tried and tried, but Garrett made sure I couldn't. He twisted the truth, told Eleanor lies, filed papers to keep me away." He shook his head, the hurt plain on his face. By the time I could fight, it was too late. My thoughts flew to my mother, to the way she had sat at the party, mute and small. A war of emotions rose inside me, love tangled with anger. "Why didn't she tell me?" I asked. "Why didn't she fight?" Samuel's hand closed over mine, warm and steady. "Eleanor loved you, Oliver." She was frightened. Garrett controlled more than just a household. He controlled her fear. She made choices to keep herself safe, and she paid for them in silence. "Don't confuse fear with lack of love." His words washed over me, softening something that had been raw for years, but the ache remained. "So all this time I thought I was abandoned," I said. "All those nights when Garrett said I didn't belong, you still wanted me?" Samuel's eyes glistened. He reached across the table and gripped my hand like a vow. "Every day. From the moment you were born, I wanted you. I never stopped." Sitting there, hand in his, the room felt like the first place I could breathe. The storm that had chased me that night had given way to a quiet I hadn't known I needed. For now the past stayed where it belonged. A series of wounds Samuel couldn't undo but could finally acknowledge. And beside him, for the first time in a long time, I felt as if I had somewhere to belong. The years of weight I'd carried began to loosen, almost imperceptibly at first. For as long as I could remember, I'd convinced myself I was a mistake, something to be tolerated, not cherished. Sitting across from Samuel, seeing the proof of his longing and persistence, I realized how wrong I'd been. The lies that had shaped my life started to fall away like dried paint. The days that followed blurred into a steady rhythm of discovery. Samuel spread out old photo albums on the kitchen table, handed me letters he'd written but never sent, and showed me court documents and notices that traced the fights he'd waged to reach me. Each scrap he revealed patched another hole in the story I'd been living. Bitterness softened into something I hadn't expected. Fragile, stubborn hope. I found myself thinking about Garrett often, about the cold certainty in his face the night he made me leave. There was no remorse in him, only finality. In a twisted way, his cruelty had broken the world I knew and pushed me toward the life I needed. By insisting I go, he had unwittingly opened the door to the truth. Eleanor's silence stung the most. I knew she loved me. I'd always known that, but when it mattered most, she had been frozen, and her quiet felt like betrayal. Sometimes I pictured us at the kitchen table again, me asking the questions, her answering, and wondered if she could ever say aloud what she had hidden. That conversation would have to wait. For now, I focused on the small, steady work of rebuilding what had been taken, learning a man's face as a father's, relearning how to trust, letting myself hope. One evening we sat by the fire, the wood sending up a steady glow, and Samuel looked at me with a weariness stitched through his pride. "I can't give you back what we lost," he said, voice low, "but I can give you everything from this day forward." I swallowed, feeling the truth of it hit me in the chest. "That's all I want," I said. "A chance to know you. A chance to belong." For the first time in years, I believed him. What unfolded after that night felt like the end of an old storm and the beginning of something calmer. I'd lost a house and the man who'd pretended to be my father, but I'd gained a home and a parent who had never stopped searching. The difference between them was simple. One had kept me because it was convenient. The other had fought for me because I was worth fighting for. The lesson settled into me slowly. Family isn't measured by a shared roof or the food set on a table. It's measured by the people who claim you, who stand up for you when forces try to take you away, who keep looking even when hope seems impossible. Storms can ruin things, yes, but they can also wash away falsehoods and let the truth show through. What remained after the rain was unmistakable. I was wanted, I was loved, and I finally had a place that felt like mine.